Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is Charlie Newton here again for another splash class. I know this is looking very ominous today because we have the main lights off today. Today we are going to begin to explore painting in oils. It's my favorite medium. I'm telling you, it's the most advanced medium that an artist can use, and it's the most beautiful. The results can be the most beautiful, but it takes time to learn. So we've given out some oil paints to our students and for them to play with. I started painting in oils, I think I was in the third or fourth grade, and I painted with oil paints, doing paint by number sets and things like that. But it wasn't until college that I began to learn how to actually manipulate the paints. So I just want to give some beginner tips in order to start. The main thing, first thing I want you to understand is that you must paint in a well-ventilated room because these paints are toxic. They are permanent. They will not come out of your clothes. You can wash them off your skin with warm water and soap. No problem. You don't need to use turpentine or anything like that, paint thinner, to clean your hands. Just warm water and soap will do it. Also, they will not come out of your clothes. So you want to be in a room with a window or something with good ventilation. And do not paint in your bedroom, wherever you sleep. Don't do that. Don't paint in the kitchen either. So find you a space to paint. You may not have a place inside. You can paint in your garage or you can paint on your front porch. That's fine. But these paints takes a lot of experimentation. You have to be patient with these paints. And there's a lot of advanced techniques. Well, I'm not going to give you any advanced techniques. I'm just going to give you the basic, simple things that you need to begin painting. And last time we had drawn a skull, so I figured it might be fun to paint a skull. And I guess I'll show you the classical way of starting an oil painting. So let's begin. So here you see the skull that I started. I may want to mention it's better to paint in oils. At some point you need to get you an easel. So at some point you need to get an easel and paint upright. You don't necessarily want to paint on a table. But if you don't have a choice, go ahead and start painting on a table. So this is a 9 by 12 sheet of paper, and I've given the kids a 9 by 12. This canvas is a little shorter than a 9 by 12, but you have 9 by 12 canvases, 4 canvases to start with. This is so exciting for me. Do not get frustrated if you find it hard to manipulate. Painting in oils is different than acrylics. Acrylics are very forgiving because they dry fast. Painting in oils is sort of like, it's very forgiving too. It is even more forgiving than watercolors, because watercolors, once it dries, you can't change. But oil paints take so long to dry that you can change things. Now, with oil paints, you want to be patient and allow the painting to sit sometimes. So you want to paint in stages or steps and in layers. So you might do one step one day, another step the second day. But we're going to do what's called alla prima or alla prima, however you want to pronounce it today, wet on wet oil painting, which is the best way to practice as well. Let me say this again. In practicing your oil painting, you probably want to practice on things like this, masonite. So I give the kids a sheet of masonite, but I want you to use your masonite as a palette. But you can also use a styrofoam plate. You can use, and I think that's the cheapest way. Use styrofoam. These days, I've learned something from my wife. I've been using these huge palettes my entire painting life for the last 50 years. But now I started painting using magazine pages. So I have so many old magazines. I decided, how could I use these? So I started using the pages because the pages are covered in plastic. So this is the picture that we did last class. Now, the classical way of doing an oil painting, you would want to do a picture with this amount of detail before you start painting. We're not going to do that today, though. You don't have to do it that way, but the reason why a lot of the Leonardo da Vinci's and the Michelangelos, they would do a picture with a lot of detail, and usually they would draw in charcoal, is because when you do the picture with detail, you can figure out the lighting, what the lighting is going to be. And so your picture, your drawing, I've been saying this over and over, the drawing is the foundation to everything. So your drawing is what you build the painting on. Now, since I can draw to this level, and this is not a finished drawing. If this was going to be a finished drawing, I would have a lot more detail. It would look a lot more 3D-ish, and I would use a lot more pencils. But this is the start. But a sketch on a canvas can stop here at this stage. Now, since I can imagine this drawing, when I paint, because of my experience, I don't have to draw to this detail. But I just want you to be aware is that that's a good place to start, drawing in detail like that. So for us, we're going to start, and I might want to mention to you if you have sensitive skin, a lot of you young ladies especially are concerned about your hands. You want to cover them with gloves, plastic or gloves, or some type of gloves to cover your hands. They also make a liquid glove that you can buy at Home Depot or some hardware store. It's called a liquid glove. You can it's like a lotion you can cover your hands with, okay, to protect your hands. Your hands may be sensitive to the paints because the paint have a lot of mediums in it. It has a lot of solvents in it. Okay, so first we're just going to do a simple sketch. I could approach this without doing a sketch, and I sort of want to use a larger canvas. Would you hand me one of those canvases there? I do want to use a larger canvas. I thought these canvases was the same size as what I gave you guys in your set, but this canvas is a little smaller. I like to paint large anyway, so let's see, what's the difference? Yeah, okay, so this 9 by 12 is the same size as this picture here. So I'll put this picture up here, and I can use that picture as a reference if I need to. So we turned off the lights in the studio so that we have direct lighting, and we have light coming from the front right-hand side. So the right side, the front left-hand side, so the right side of that skull, the right side is in shadow. And I wanted to do shadows. I wanted some drama. And then we gave it a dark background, and I'm going to show you why. Because I want to show you a painting style called chiaroscuro. And, when I teach these classes, I'm an artist, and I teach them as an artist, my artist mindset. I am not a teacher who teaches their whole life and then does art on the side. I'm an artist who every now and then I teach. So it's hard for me. I've learned so many things. I've developed my own way of doing things, And some of you kids, it's funny, some of my students, I see you getting, artists are very, what's the word I should use? Independent. And they have their own way of doing things. And these are the paints that we're giving to Splash Kids, kids who want to participate in this shelter. This is a shelter and art program project that we're doing. So you have 24 colors in here. We're not going to use all these colors today. We're going to use a limited amount of colors. So what I want to use is some basic colors, and so that we can do some mixing. The first color I'm going to use is going to be burnt umber. And we're going to use, see if we have some ultramarine blue in here. Yeah, I'm going to use ultramarine. You could use ivory black too. You know what? I'm going to use burnt sienna, because burnt umber makes it too easy for what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to use burnt sienna, which is a very reddish brown. So and then I'm going to use this ultramarine blue, and let's see. I'm going to try to make it difficult for me so that you can see how we can use color mixing to achieve our goals. I think I'm going to use the cadmium yellow pale hue. Now I could try to find colors that's very close to what I'm looking at, but we need to be able to mix our colors. And I think I'm going to use some zinc white. No, I'll use some titanium white. Okay, so burnt umber, ultramarine red. No, I'm not talking about ultramarine red. Ultramarine blue. Let me lay these down. Okay, I'm going to use titanium white, cadmium yellow pale hue, ultramarine blue, and burnt umber. Okay. It's just a basic. Some of you may have some oil paints, and you would have all these paints. You may not have you would have some type of yellow, some type of orange yellow. Cadmium yellow is sort of like an orangey type of yellow. But this is cadmium yellow hue, which is nice. Now, so I've limited myself to these colors. Now, you only need just a little bit, just a little paint on there. You don't want to squeeze the tube hard, okay? These tubes should last you for a while as a beginner. And you can always squeeze more paint out as necessary. So I'm putting my brown over there. I'm going to put my yellow here. Got some yellow on it. I'm going to try. And blue, I'll put my blue on this side of the brown, ultramarine blue. And white. White is going to be the go-to paint. So in your set, you have titanium white and zinc white. Titanium white is a duller white than zinc. We never use white in its purest form in painting. And you have some brushes. You notice I love these brushes because they are long handles. And if you're standing at your easel and you're going to want to paint with your arm, and we're going to demonstrate how to paint, do some serious painting on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays. And by the way, these brushes, you should rinse them out in warm water, which I've neglected to do, because they come with a little film on it. So what I'm going to do is pour some water on my rag and kind of wipe my brushes down a little bit. So they put up some type of little thin coat of something on the brushes so that they don't bend so easily in shipping and everything. And you don't have to rinse this off. The solvent itself, the paint itself, would clean the brush as well. But you see the brush will soften up when you rinse it off. And rub that little film off the brush. And you see the brushes will become more bouncy and springy once you do that. Okay? And the brush will be able to soak up the paint. I usually use a bucket, put my brushes in. And so I never clean my brushes until I finish for the day. Okay? If I need to use a brush more than one color with one brush, I'll wipe the brush down and then I'll dip the brush in the paint. But I will not dip it in paint thinner unless I have to. So you have in your set, you have this oil painting medium. This is what's toxic. There's solvents in the paint, but this is what you use to thin the paint, and I'll demonstrate. So once you open this, you would pour a little bit of it just a little bit in a little cup. Just a teeny tiny bit, just about that much. You don't need a lot. I'm just going to pour a little bit. This will also clean your brush as well. So I don't know if you can see that in that camera or not, but yeah, that's just a little bit in there, see? So you have to control everything. You can't be clumsy with this stuff. Actually, you can at some point, but in the beginning, let's not be clumsy. But I want you kids to experiment with this. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to see it's not easy. It's not something that's easy to do, but it's fun once you can gain some control. And it takes a little time. So now what I'm going to do, I could sketch with my paintbrush. Matter of fact, I will later. But if you want to sketch with a pencil first, I just sketched the basic shapes in this skull. Right? That's the basic shape. Now, so we're not doing the classical style where I would sketch in total, complete detail. Now I just want to do sort of like a gesture. And I could do this with the brush. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do this with my brush after I do it here, just because it's demonstration. So I wanted to know basically where everything is. Your sketch may take longer than mine because I'm going to be painting this thing anyway. So you can manipulate the paint. Remember, I told you the paint stays wet for a long time. It takes a long time for the paint to dry. Now at home, if you don't happen to have a skull laying around in the closet somewhere, paint a vase or glass, anything. Just for practice, you need to practice first. So paint something, some inanimate object. Don't paint nothing that's difficult to draw. Paint something that you can draw, like a cup, one cup or something like that. An apple, if you have an apple fruit or something, an orange. One of the most awesome things to paint as an artist, as a beginner artist, would be a fish, because there's so many colors in fish. That is, if the fish is healthy. Okay, so I have a sketch down. And now I'm going to show you how to sketch with the paint. I'm just going to get my round brush. And if you have a smaller brush, you can use that. These brushes, by the way, are called bristle brushes. You don't want to use watercolor brushes with oil paints. You want to use a stiff brush. Bristle brush, I suggest start with a bristle brush. Now, the reason why, what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix a little of this blue with the brown. And notice it gets a very dark color. And I'm going to dip my brush into, just the tip of the brush into my painting medium. This medium also will put a gloss on the paint. And I'm just going to try to fill in some of these shapes. So I'm going to sketch with my brush. Sketch. See?
Show how much medium you've got in the cup of this, because you can't really see it. We've got a tiny amount in there. So.
You mean you want me to?
I put the torch. I put the torch on.
Oh. No. Okay. So I want to show you how much medium I have in this cup again. Can you see that?
Turn it opposite direction. Keep going. Turn the opposite direction. There you go. There's a tiny amount in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can't reuse this medium. I mean, you have to pour this medium out. Do not pour the medium down your sink, though. Pour it, pour it in a can when you finish with it. It's better to have something that you can cover, a jar or something that you can just cover, because it has turpentine in it. So you see how I still have some blue, I still have brown. I'm keeping my colors clean, and I'm mixing a very dark brown here that looks almost black, and that's what I'm sketching with. So the type of painting I'm doing is almost what we would call monochromatic. Because I'm going to have just different shades of brown. Now, when I began actually painting this thing, I'm just sketching now. I'm using paint thinner. When I start painting, I'm not going to use so much paint thinner. So just sketching it with this burnt sienna, ultramarine blue mixture. So the Shelter in Art program is a program that I designed to aid in the psychomotivation of us kids and their families during COVID, because I find that there is healing in art. I know art heals me, and I've known art to heal other people. And so with all the stress that we're going through, the election was very stressful. What's happening in our country, I wanted to do something, use art as a distraction from all the negativity that's going on. So what I'm doing now is I'm beginning to think about shadows now. I'm adding more blue to this, and I'm trying to paint the side of the skull's face, and I'm making changes as I'm painting now again. But the sketch is down. I'll end up painting and sketching at the same time, drawing and painting at the same time. That's okay. So let's just keep that there for the first stage. Okay. So you have the basic form down. Now I'm not going to clean my brush. I'm just going to turn my brush upside down and place it in that cup there. Are you able to manipulate that? Let's see. If I turn it that way.
Is that it, the tin?
Yes, that.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, you can leave it there too.
Okay.
Because you're not using that for anything else, are you?
No.
So you see how I just put the brush in this can? Now my clean brushes would be somewhere else, laying down somewhere out of the way. So now I'm going to use another brush. So I know I have dark paint on this brush. I'm not going to use any more medium for right now. I think I'm going to use my number 12 flat brush. And I'm going to get this brown. I really want a dark background. So I'm going to mix my brown and my blue. I'm going to lay a black background in. Kind of like doing a wash. I may need some more paint, or I may need to spray. Matter of fact, I'm going to use more medium. You determine. Your instincts will tell you what to do. Okay. Splash Kids, you've been making art for years now. And so now you need to begin to trust your instincts. My background is not going to be all one flat color. So sometimes it's going to be a little lighter, and sometimes it's going to be a little darker. And when it goes darker, that means I'm using a little bit more blue. I'm putting some more brown on here now. And when it goes dark, when it goes lighter, I'm using more brown. And when it goes darker, I'm using more blue. I'm not using any white on this right now. We resist using black, and we resist using white. So I needed more paint to cover this background. And you can tell when you need to use medium. Now, what's good about these paints in this paint set is that they already come very buttery, which is perfect, especially for beginning painters. But that's the perfect consistency of oil paint. You want it to be buttery. I'll be telling you some more. I'll be telling you this again. It's hard for me to paint and talk, so forgive me if I kind of say the wrong thing. But so you want your paints to be buttery. You want your first layer of paint, because painting is a process, to be thin. Now you can change it when you develop your own way of doing things. That can change. But I'm just teaching you the basics, painting 101. And I'm still leaving out, some of the art teachers might say, he's leaving out a lot of information. But I want you kids to experiment and learn a lot of this on your own. But basically, the rule is fat over lean. What do I mean lean? The paint that has some medium in it, that's thinner, that's lean paint. This would be considered lean. This buttery paint would be considered fat. You want to paint the fat over the lean so that the paint doesn't crack. Now, when you go back, which we're not going to do, I may do that. I may do this. I may go back and work on this again so that you understand fat over lean more. I have to decide, because whenever I'm teaching, I have to teach something that's fun for me too. because we're not getting graded for this. You know, your grade is, if you're having a good time, that's your grade. Have a great time. Now, just because the way I paint, I like textures and things in the background, so I'm going to leave that little brown there, that little reddish brown there. So now for the table, I'm just going to do a thin layer, even thinner, of brown. I'm going to go back later. I may not even paint the entire table because I don't think I need to. This paint will stay wet for a while, at least a day or two or three, so I don't have to worry too much about the paint drying too fast. But whenever you are painting in layers, remember this. The paint needs to be a little bit tacky when you get ready to put your second layer on. It shouldn't be so wet because it's just going to soak up whatever went before. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe my brush off. I'm going to use my palette knife to mix a color. I'm going to try to mix a color that's close to this skull. So I'm going to take the yellow, mix it with some brown, I probably have too much brown in here now, but I'm going to find out in just a minute. And when I mix this yellow with the brown, we get a color basically that's called ochre, yellow ochre. Now I'm going to mix some white in it. So I'm going to have to go backwards again and put more yellow in here. So this brown, see how this brown is so overpowering? I could go ahead and start painting with this brown now, but I don't want to. I want this brown to be a lot lighter. So I'm going to put some yellow. Now this time I'm going to be careful to not mix too much yellow into this light brown, because it's going to disappear if I do that. The yellow is going to disappear. I want more yellow in my picture on the skull. So I'm controlling what I'm doing. So this would be a dark, I want the yellow at this consistency. Now I'm going to mix some white in this yellow. Now you notice I'm mixing enough paint to paint this skull here. That brown, I can use that later. So I'm going to mix this white on the side here so that the white don't get lost either. I don't want to, I'm trying to control my colors. Now, so these are the textures I'm going to be using in this skull, these three right here. And then I might go lighter. Now, the paint is going to look different on the canvas than it does on this palette. So I'm going to just start painting now. And I think I may go back to, you know what, I'm going to use my larger round brush. I'm going to lay this paint on sort of thick. I am not mixing any paint medium with this. Now, with your painting, we're just practicing, okay? But I want you to paint pictures on your own, and you can decide how much thinner you want in your paint. So I'm using the lighter color, this lighter color, to paint around the skull's eyes. And I'm using the lighter yellow for the front. This is where the light is hitting. See the left-hand side, sort of? And I'm going to allow the right-hand side of this picture to go a little darker. So the more white I use, the more light is being shown. But there's also some shadow in the background because the light is coming from the left-right side of the picture. So I'm using this large brush only so that I can cover more space, more area. And then I'm going to go back. Now I'm painting highlights now right here, the lighter areas. But I'm going to go back into this skull. And I'm trying to keep up with the time as well. And also, I think I may go ahead and put some of this down here, some of this color down here on the table. I'm not going to have a white table like in the picture. I want my painting to be unified. And this is, even though we are painting this sort of together, I'm dipping my brush in some thinner because I want the table to be thin. And I'm going to use this brown color that we mixed. I'm going to lay that into the table right now. I'm looking at my model here. I'm painting from life. I'm not painting from a photograph. You guys see a photograph on your. Maybe we can get a shot of me in that skull there. So you can see I'm painting from life now. I'm not painting from the photograph. And there's a slight difference in when you're painting from life. Can you reach it? No, I can. Okay. Now I'm thinking about inside of the eyes are a little darker than the outside, so I'm going to put a little darker color in there inside the eyes. I'm going back with a dark color in the end to for detail. Now I'm blending. I'm going ahead and allowing myself, I'm giving myself the license to begin to blend. I'm going to make this side of the head a little wider and a little taller. And I'm seeing a shadow on the top of the head, and I'm going to blend that in. So I'm blending the edge of this light color. When painting, paint the entire picture at once. I may be working on this part of the skull. I'm still using a pretty large brush here for this little small skull here. But don't just focus on one little area. I really like the natural blendings. I'm going to pick up a little bit of this dark color here. I'm not even changing or wiping my brush down right now. So now I think I need to change brushes. It might be time to change brushes now. Well, before I change brushes, I am going to clean my brush off. This large brush, I'm going to clean it off. So I have cleaned off the light paint. I'm going to get this dark color, thick. I'm not adding any medium to it. And I'm going to try to see if I can and accentuate this right side of the skull as it goes back in space. See that? I'm probably gonna have to get a smaller brush, but I'm using the large brush as long as I can. Now this is alla prima, so this is what we're doing now is wet on wet painting. So what I could do is go back tomorrow or the next day once the paint is a little tacky and do my second layer. I could do a second layer. I'm not going to use any more brushes than what I've already used now too for consistency. So I'm going back into my dark paints, dark brown. Actually, I'm going to use a little bit more blue. I'm going to paint these shadows. I'm painting this shadow here is with ultramarine blue with no brown mixed in it. This is the smallest brush we have in this set, so the good thing about that is that you will gain some more skill by using a small brush. I'm going to have to clean this brush at some point. So that blue, when it went on the yellow, it looks blue now, but I don't necessarily want it to. So I'm going to mix some more brown, dip my brush in some brown. Now I'm really beginning to try to describe what this skull is doing in space with my browns. I had too much paint on my brush. Every now and then look down at your brush. I have a habit of not looking down at my brush, and I make mistakes that way. Sometimes I think I have something on my brush and I don't have what I thought I had on the brush. I'm going to paint the shadow behind the head. I'm going to just use blue. I only put blue on the brush. I need some more blue. This paint stretches. It will go a long way. So that's why I'm not using too much paint. Now this is the stage, when you get to this stage when you have paint on the entire canvas, you see I have some little white areas there. I'm going to try cleaning those up a little bit, but when you have paint on the entire canvas, you have just done what might be considered an underpainting. You would go to the next stage after this painting is tacky dry. You know, you could touch it and it's a little sticky, a little tacky. And you would leave it, you would stop here, okay? And a lot of this stuff can be cleaned up later. I'm not going to stop here today, but this is a good stopping place. So now I'm going back to some of my lighter colors. Now, since I'm going with lighter colors, I can dip my brush into the painting medium just to clean my brush off with my rag. Or I could go to a brush that I haven't used before. But I don't like doing that. If you can limit your brushes to 3 or 4 brushes, that's good. Now I'm going to go in and paint some highlights. I'm actually painting using light yellow, this lightest yellow, to put in some of these highlights here. And you can blend the edges of it. Practice blending. I'm using this wide round brush right now still. And because it covers more area. Now I'm going to a smaller brush in a couple of minutes. Okay, I'm going to go to a smaller brush now. Small round brush, which is the number 4, I think. No, number 6. And it has this dark brown on it. I'm going to use this dark brown, and then I'm going to clean the brush off. Just want to do a few shadows. There's a thin line here. Now what this is called, what I'm doing now, in this stage of the painting, this is called modeling. It's kind of like if you can imagine modeling clay, moving the clay around. Now I'm only moving paint around, is what I'm doing. I need just a little bit more brown, so I'm taking the brown up with my palette knife, placing it on my palette. These plates work very well. I like these paper plates, the thick cardboard light paper plates. It works really well. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get my wider brush because it has light paint on it. I'm going to paint the highlights inside, or the light areas inside of the eyes. They're not as light as this part. But then I'm going to go back with my dark paints. So I'm just going to indicate where the light is hitting inside the skull's eyes. See that? I think that's going to work. And again, with oil paints, you can change it. I can come back tomorrow, or even today, I can keep blending and I can paint over things. So the light is coming from this angle, so this is going to be a little lighter in the corner of this eye. Hit the skull's right eye. I'm going to add some light here. Hopefully that's in the right place. There. Again, you can make changes. So I'm using my wide brush. I like using the wide brush until I have no choice but to go to a smaller brush. You will increase your skills that way and your pictures will look a little bit more natural. They won't look as contrived as a lot of pictures look. It, you know, it will look like a painting. I'll put it like that. Put a little bit yellow down here. We talk a lot about the painting having some type of unity. And by my putting some of the colors here in the table, it triggers the mind, what the eye is used to seeing in real life, even though consciously we're not aware of it. We're used to seeing reflections. Now, see, I dipped a dirty brush into a light color. That was a mistake I just made. Now I'm going to see if I can use that anywhere. Maybe I might be able to use it here and here, maybe there. Sometimes I mix colors on the canvas. That's what I just did. And all the primer, you do mix the colors on the canvas as well. You don't just mix all the colors on your palette. Now I'm just blending some things in, and I'm getting ready to finish with highlights. But I don't want white paper. I don't want to leave white, not paper, but canvas. I'm going to blend that in. I'm going to accentuate this area here. This is just ultramarine blue. I'm going to put some ultramarine blue there. See that? And what it does, it makes it look like it's black. It's very dark, but it's not black. Black would flatten everything out. I don't want to flatten this thing out. Now I'm blending the background in a little bit. I'm going to put some blue here where this table meets the background. Go over here to this side, darken it. So this paint is basically wet on wet still. Still wet on wet. Again, this would be the first stage, or if it's considered a sketch, it could be the last stage, the only stage. A good friend of mine, he paints. I haven't talked to him. I need to call him and see if he realizes that. I've mentioned this to him before, but he paints like Henry Tanner, who is my favorite artist from the past. He's an African-American artist, and his paints are very thin. When he went to, he was trained classically in Philadelphia, but when he went to Europe, because of the discrimination here in America, when he went to Europe, to France, they received him. He became famous. Matter of fact, he was the most. Think this was in the 30s. I didn't look him up. I didn't need to. Um, Look up his information again, so I don't tell you wrong. I think it probably was in the 20s when he won the Salon, the Paris Salon show, the gold medal. He won the gold medal. He was the first American to win that gold medal, which was the most uh, prestigious prize in France. During that time, I'm just mixing my colors now, going back in. During that time, France was the leader in the art world. It wasn't America. This was before abstract expressionism. America began to become more of a leader in the art world with abstract expressionism, which was created in large part by people who were transplants from other countries in Europe. I don't know why some people don't like immigrants. America's made up of nothing but immigrants. Anyway, see, it's these type of stressful things that's going on that makes me want to paint and makes me want to do shelter in place. Start thinking about all the things that's going on. So Henry Tanner, long story short, is one of my favorite painters. I have considered doing a copy of one of his paintings for a demo. My favorite painting of his is called The Banjo Lesson, where this old man is teaching a young person his skill on the banjo. It's beautiful, teaching a young boy. And it has inspired me to teach young kids my skills and to do it for free. I think art should be free. One thing that I really like about England, London, where my wife comes from, is that you can go to the museums for free. So everybody have access. And one of the purposes of Splash is to give everybody access to art, no matter your social, economic status. And if I see a kid with some talent, I really want to help them because, I didn't have any help when I was a child. So that's why we do this. It's all coming from a good place. And art makes children powerful. Remember that. Every child deserves to have art in their life. It can only help, especially with kids who can't afford to pay for art classes. None of my students can afford, well, a few of them can, maybe 5 or 6 can, but they can't afford to pay me to teach them art. Yeah, it sounds so arrogant. But it's the truth. To pay a working, exhibiting artist to teach them art, that's why we started Splash. Because we saw that, why not do it for free? Why not give this kids an opportunity no matter where they come from, no matter what the color of their skin is? So anyway, let me get back down off my high horse. I just want you to know that we just want to be a blessing to children. That's all. And this, I'm actually doing a live feed now. Tell her. She's downstairs. That's one of our parents calling. Okay, we just family here. We don't care. Okay. Her stuff, everything down there belongs to her. There's 2 bags of paper and a cloth. We're getting ready to finish. I'm just going to give this skeleton some teeth and we'll be done.
You finish before I get back up?
Mm-hmm. I'm going to finish in a minute, so wait. Okay, this is what's called olive primer or olive primer, some people pronounce, but it's wet on wet painting. I'm just using brush strokes to represent the teeth. I'm using a light yellow for the teeth. I'm finished.
I know.
I'm finishing now. So, what do you guys think? Oh, let me do one more thing then, and then we're going to finish. I'm going to use this light yellow to highlight this eye right here. I actually need okay. So this is okay as far as the finished work. This is the finished painting here. And remember to put your name on it, on your picture. But this is wet on wet, olive primer. Okay? I want you to try to paint this, kids. And then I'm going to put my initials here. If I wanted to, I would let this dry for 24 hours or 48 hours, whenever it's tacky. I don't want it hard dry because when oil paint's dry, there's a film that builds on top of it. And what you would need to do is go back with some light sandpaper and lightly sand that film off of the picture. So it's better when it's tacky. So what the paint that you put on top of it can be thicker if you want it to be, or it can still be thin. You can use glazes, but it will stick to the paint that's underneath, okay? So we're always dealing with drying times when we're doing our paintings. Put a little light in there, put a little light here. We're always dealing with drying times. So that's it for today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed that. Play with your oil painting set, and I hope you have fun. We will be on every day except Sunday doing our Shelter and Art project. Thanks to the Tennessee Arts Commission for their COVID resilience funding, which is helping us to be on every day, filming and taping. My studio is going to be open, by appointment only. And on the 15th, we're going to have an art show of the things that we've done here. and that's by appointment only as well. So I hope you have a great weekend, and remember, art is for everyone. Bye-bye.